Okay, so we kind of have our steps. So it says step 1, find the slope. So I am a very big supporter of writing out our formulas. The more you write them out, the more you memorize them, become familiar with them. Change in y over change in x. And our ordered pairs, I'm just going to write them over here too. Negative 21, 8 and 78, 74. So one cool thing, it doesn't matter which one you call your ones and which one you call your twos. So x1, y1, x2, y2. My y2 is 74. My y1 is 8. My x2 is 78. My x1 is a negative 21. So then we can do our subtraction. And then just remember, if you subtract a negative, what actually happens? Yep, you're adding. So this turns out to be 66 over 99. Now we always need to reduce that. We can divide both of them by 11, right? So if I divide this by 11 and this by 11, I get 6/9, which reduces to 2/3. Okay, so now it says we're going to write the slope. We can do this two different ways. You can either put the slope in and an x and y in and solve for b, or you can use point slope form and just get y by itself. It does not matter. Brighter. I don't think that I. Okay, so now when we are going to find the equation, to be honest, I actually like using the point slope form. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Now, it does not matter which point you use. I tend to choose either the one that's smaller or positive. You guys get to use calculators, so it doesn't really, one's not necessarily way easier than the other. Let's use the smaller one. I'm going to use the 21, negative 21 and the 8. So if my point's negative 21, positive 8, this is x1, y1. So my equation would read y minus 8 equals 2/3 times x minus a negative 21, which ends up turning that to addition. So I change that right away. We do have to distribute the 2/3. But in our good fortune, we can take 2/3 of 21, because 21 can be split into 3 by what? 7, and we have 2 of them. So what does that give us? 2 7s gives us 14. And then to get the y alone, and one more step, what do I do? Yep, so we're going to add 8. Remember that you can only add the 8 to the 14. That 2/3 has an x with it. So 14 plus 8 gives you 22. So here's our equation, 2/3 x plus 22.
You stop the equation when you just have y.
Yes, yep, because we like to work with slope intercept form. That's probably a
Makes more sense.
pretty handy equation. Oh, yeah, write the equation. Okay, so now we're going to check our point. So we take the equation that we just created, and we've got to check the big point, the 2742. So we are checking 2742. So I'm going to put 42 in for y. And 27 in for x. Now again, we can split 27 into thirds. What do we get each time? 9. 9 times 2 is 18. What's 18 plus 22?
No, 40.
40. So does 40 equal 42?
No.
Okay. That makes sense so far?
It seems easy, just like a long process.
It does. Yep. It will get a little bit faster. We worked with really large numbers, so that's why it made it a little bit longer. Like there was lots of reducing and subtracting that we couldn't do in our head, that type of thing. Okay, so it says write the slope-intercept formula of the line containing the points. So we are basically just doing step 1 and step 2. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is find our slope: x1, y1, x2, y2. So if my equation, so my y2 is -3, my y1 is 3, my x2 is 1, my x1 is -2. -3 minus 3 ends up as a -6. And then 1 plus a negative, we end up adding that, and that gives us 3. So our slope reduces to a -2. Now we are going to go to that point slope equation. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Plug in what we know. It does not matter what pair you use. Okay, sometimes I try to look for if one's easier than the other, but in this case, they're both equal. So this is going to be y. I'm going to use this first ordered pair. -3 equals -2 times x plus 2. It was plus 2 because I had a -2. So then we distribute. -2x minus 4. Last step is to move that. Yep, -4 or -4 is the same thing.
So when it's in parentheses, whenever the slope is negative, that means it's plus.
Nope, this was a +2 because my point was a -2.
Oh,
Okay, good question. And then -4 plus 3 gives us a -1. So my equation is y equals -2x minus 1. Okay, so we're just practicing these ones. So they want us to take it to the graph. And we're going to graph this to make sure we did it right. So I'm going to start at -1. And then I'm going to go down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1. What do you guys think? We do it right? So generally you don't do so many steps, but because we are kind of checking our work to see if we did things correctly, that's what we're doing. So did it go through this? Yep. Did it go through 1, -3? Yes. Okay, so we are going to do it again. So I'm going to do one more with you, and then I'm going to let you guys try one. Austin.
So on the smaller graphs where everything fits, instead of doing the y2 minus y1, can you just go through the graph and find the slope?
So you can, but today we're practicing them. Okay, so I want you to do the formula because the reason why I put the graphs on here is to check your work. Generally, when you are going to be given a problem, you're probably not going to have your graph to do that with. Now, if, like you said, if it's small enough, you could sketch one out and try to be as accurate as possible, and you could find the slope that way. But sketching a graph and then graphing it and then counting probably takes you just as long as using the slope formula. So, but yes, you are not wrong in your thinking. Okay, so we're gonna kind of do the same thing again. So x1, y1 should clear up. x2, y2. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. 2 minus 0 is 2. 4 minus a negative 4 actually gives us 8. So that reduces to 1/4. Now I'll give you a little hint. Almost anytime I have a 0 for one of my points, that's the point I put into my equation, especially when you're trying to simplify it, because a 0 usually just will drop out of there, and that usually leaves you with less to do. So if I were using my point slope equation, y minus y1 equals m, which is my slope, x minus a negative 4 turns to +4. Are you guys okay if I skip writing the original equation? Does that still make sense to you? Okay. We can write it up here if we want. Okay, so if you can see what happens with that y minus 0? It just drops, yep. So then that makes our life just a tiny bit easier because we can distribute 1/4 times x is 1/4 x. 1/4 times 4 is just 1, and we have our answer. You go to your graph, +1, up 1 over 4, down 1 over 4. We're good to go. Okay, how about I'll do one more with you and then you'll do the 2 on your own. Okay, RM, x1, y1, x2, y2. So 3 minus a negative 4, and then 5 minus a negative 2. Bless you. 3 minus a negative turns out to be a +7. 5 minus a negative turns out to also be a +7. What's 7 over 7? 1. Doesn't matter which pair you use. I'm actually probably going to take my first pair because when I put that into my equation, remember if it's a negative, it actually turns to a positive. So this is going to be y plus 4 equals 1 times x plus 2. It's always the opposite of the point when you do those. And then when I distribute 1x plus 2, my last little step then would be to subtract the 4. Y equals 1x minus 2. You go to your graph. We start at -2. My slope is 1. Up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. Did it go through both your points? Yes. Okay, so I'm going to pause it and let you guys do the next. You would have had your x1, y1, x2, y2. So 2 minus 2 over 3 minus a -2 for our slope. 2 minus 2 is 0 over 5 still equals 0. Okay, so anytime you have a 0 slope, what's going to happen is y minus 2 equals 0 times x plus 2. This is going to 0 out, and you end up with y minus 2 equals 0. Add your 2 to the other side. Excuse me. Your equation is y equals 2, which if you look at your graph, if you graph y equals 2, remember it's a straight across line crossing at y equals 2. Okay, your other one, x1, y1, x2, y2, 1 minus a negative 3 over negative 4 minus a negative 4. This turns out to be 4 over 0. Well, we know we can't divide by 0, so we get undefined. Okay? So right then and there, you should know that your equation is going to read x equals, where does it cross? Crosses at negative 4. Okay. So if you can look at a set of ordered pairs ahead of time, and you can see that they have matching x's or matching y's. So for example, here, if it has matching x's, it's going to cross the x-axis at 5. If it has matching y's, it's going to be a y equals 7. Sorry, you probably can't see that very well, can you? I'll go back to this. So then this one has matching y's. So this is y equals negative 1. This one has matching zeros, which is our x value. So it's x equals 0. And then you guys just have to commit to memory that if it crosses the y-axis, it's a horizontal line, flat line. If it crosses the x-axis, it's a vertical line. Okay. Okay. Last little part here. I know these notes are kind of long. It says we have been writing linear equations using formulas, solving for a certain variable and so on. But if we truly understand what a linear equation is saying, we don't need to do much work. Okay. So point slope method, slope intercept method, or intuitive method. Okay. So it says write the slope intercept form of the equation whose slope is 2 and contains the points 3, 5. So point slope form, we put the 2 in, put the point in, we solve to get y. Slope intercept form, we put the 2 in, we put the point in, we solve for b, and we put the slope and b into the equation. Okay, then the last method, it says, since the slope is 2, we know our equation will start like this. Y equals 2x. Okay. Right now, our equation says that y value is 2 times x value. That's not true. 2 times 3 equals 6, but we want 5. So our equation would need to adjust. Okay. So basically what they're telling you to do is they're telling you to start with your equation. Okay, and this is kind of tricky. Like I've never seen this until I taught out of this section here. So they're saying if you take this point 3, 5, okay, this comes out to be 5 equals 6. But we don't want 5 to equal 6. So how would we get this to equal 5? Well, you would take away the 1. Look at our equation. Pretty crazy. Okay. So I've never used this method. So let's try this a couple times. Okay. So, and it only works with practice. So our slope is 3. So that means that our equation is y equals 3x. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the x and the y into the equation. So I have 14 equals 3 times 4. Does 14 equal 3 times 4? No, this is 12, right? So plus 2. Yeah, so our equation is actually going to be y equals 3x plus 2. I had to add 2 to the 12 to get to 14. Okay, so it's kind of fun to know other ways to do things too. So our next one, our y equals negative 4x, x, y. So our y is negative 5. Our x is 2. So negative 4 times 2. Yeah, so this is going to give me a negative 8. What would I need to add to negative 8? Plus 3. So that means your equation is y equals negative 4x plus 3. Okay, so again, y equals negative 2x. And then x, y. So 10 is my y. Negative 6 is my x. So 10 equals 12. Well, what would I have to do to the 12 to get it minus 2? So this would be y equals negative 2x minus 2. Do you guys see what I'm doing? Okay, let's keep y equals 1. Or y equals 1x, sorry. The 8 goes in for the x. The 8 goes in for the y, 2 goes in for the x. 8 does not equal 2. What would I have to do? Add 6 to it, right? So my equation is y equals 1x plus 6. Better? You want me to keep doing them? Y is 5x. 9 goes in for y. 2 goes in for x. 9 does not equal 10. Well, what I have to do to get it to equal 9? Take away 1. So y equals 5x minus 1. Should we do a fraction? Yeah. Well, actually, let's do this one. This one's going to be 0. Y equals negative 3x. So this is 0 equals negative 3. Well, what would we have to do to get it to 0? Add 3. So y equals negative 3x plus 0. Let's do a fraction one just for good measure. Y is 1/2 x. X, y. So negative 1 equals 1/2 of 8. Negative 1 equals 4. How would I get from 4 to negative 1? Minus 5. Yeah. So y equals 1/2 x minus 5. Okay, so the last couple examples here says we can only use this trick once we know the slope. So if they give you 2 points, we could find the slope first. X1, y1, x2, y2. So this gives me 10 minus 7 over 2 minus 1. 10 minus 7 is 3. 2 minus 1 is 1. It does not matter which set of ordered pairs you use. So we have y equals 3x. Let's just use the first set. So 7 equals 3 times 1. 7 does not equal 3. What would I have to do to get to 7? Add 4. So my equation is y equals 3x plus 4. Let's do one more of those for sure. X1, Y1, X2, Y2. Negative 11 minus 1 over 4 minus a negative 2. Negative 11 minus 1 gives me a negative 12. 4 minus a negative 2 gives me 6. So my equation is y equals negative 2x. Put these points in. My y is 1. My x is a negative 2. So I get y equals 4, or 1 equals 4. But how do I get the right side to equal 1? Minus 3. So your equation reads y equals negative 2x minus 3. Okay. I know that